Welcome back to Five Stars Realty Podcast. Today, I'm really excited about this episode. We're not just going to be talking about real estate, we're going to be talking about leadership, growth, the market, and a little bit of everything with John Carlos Machado, the VP mortgage lending at guaranteed rate and the founder of the Machado Group. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to, talk some awesome things.
Awesome. So, John, tell us a little bit of your background and to get the public to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me personally. I am a first generation Colombian. My parents came from Bogota. My whole family came from basically Bogota. I grew up locally in Bristol, Connecticut. I grew up, with a family of all Spanish speakers, but it was very difficult, I think, kind of embracing the language, which is why, yo puedo hablar español muy claramente, pero me siento más confortable a veces to articulate, in English. And it's kind of like that chasm that we have there. But a little bit about, my professional background. I have been in, financial sales or sales in general since 2015 or 16. Can you remember?
Apparently not.
A big believer in educating the client. I think that's been, a center point in, what I do in whatever industry, whether it was financial sales with products, whether it's mortgages, whether, when I first started, it was, financial products for vehicles and financing. At the end of the day, I've always taken the approach to basically give the consumer as much education as I can because I think, we're very fear-based. When we don't understand something, we panic and then we don't move forward, even if it's in our best interest. So it's really understanding the psyche behind, just providing that calm, educational, consultation, we'll call it. And then at that point in time, the consumer can make the best decision for themselves because they're not stuck in fear and am I doing the right thing? They're listening, they're absorbing the information, they're absorbing the data, and then they can make the best decision in whatever purchase it is, whether it's a vehicle, any insurances, any financial products, mortgages, you name it.
I do take that a little bit into my own. So my mom came from Puerto Rico and everything, but they speak only Spanish. So learning the English, going through high school and everything, they'd be the Stephany, translate, Stephany, do this. Especially when they went to buy a car or a mortgage or anything, it'd be like, Stephany, like we don't understand. So I do understand what it feels like to kind of be that first generation and translate or get the knowledge. So I know that you do lending, mortgage, and everything. Tell me a little bit how, from sales, from that background, you ended in mortgage. Like, what drove you to that?
That's a great question. So, I'm going to say two things. COVID was definitely something I gave a little bit of a push, but it's funny. I started in sales, back when, I don't know if you remember the Volkswagen Dieselgate, right? And they were actually supposed to tell me, we don't need you anymore. So I came in an environment that was very volatile, and it taught me a lot about myself, because it's very easy to give up at that point and say, I can't do this. And then what else am I going to do? Or embrace the fact that there's always going to be, a drastic challenge, and are you up for it mentally? So, I came on board after 6 months, a year. I was a top producer. I then started getting recruited by different, car dealerships such as, Crowley and, big names to come, self-finance and insurance, and then obviously do the loans for the vehicles. So, understanding the basis of putting together a loan, whether it's a car or, pool or whatever, a mortgage, it's understanding the financing component. But at the same time, I think something that was very impactful for me was just my ability to just connect with the consumer. I'm not a pressure person. I don't pressure sales. I really feel that, if you understand it, you can hear what I'm saying, and then it's all about emotion. We make decisions typically in sales with emotion, or at least, if you're able to sell. Those that apply pressure and all that, that's not really, you're not really owning your craft. So a big portion of it was like, let me own my craft So yeah, I mean, I started selling cars, finance manager. At one point I was, assistant general sales manager, and then COVID happened, and then the whole world shut down. And at that point in time, my wife was pregnant with my son, and this was when initially they're like, if you breathe on her, something bad could happen to your child. And I think at the end of the day, I understand business have to run themselves that way. But when you got a doctor telling you, this is the likelihood end result, and the world has never seen this, I stood my ground and I said, you know what, I can't be there. I understand the business. I can work remotely. I can't be there. And at the end of the day, it cost me my position, but you have to understand, there's bigger things for you. Um, Life puts you in situations where you could either grow or you could feel bad for yourself. I lost my job. We were building a house. I had no
A
insurance.
baby on
I
the
had a
way.
baby on the way, so it really kind of, stuck with me. I had done a small stint, at a mortgage company that actually a lot of local lenders came from, basically just being like an assistant. This is, call the person, gather these documents, and then, put it all together so a loan officer can do their job. And so I did that for a year. Didn't love it. I don't really like phone sales, but it really gave me like the connections, understanding, knowing people in the business. Always try to do the right thing. So when people see your name, they look forward to connecting with you. So, COVID happened. I'm scrambling. I'm like, I need something. And then slowly after, when everything started to kind of come back down to earth, I had an opportunity to work for a top producing, loan officer out of Hamden County. And it was a great experience for me because they needed a Spanish speaker. You know, they were trying to embrace that population because it's one of the, highest upcoming
Yes.
populations for purchasing. And, not everyone, while my Spanish isn't perfect, I communicate very well, more so than most Spanish speaking lenders. So it really helped, it was a duality of helping, the loan officer grow, but also getting experience from one of the top guys out there. And I can't ever say enough that that experience was invaluable because it really kind of set forth my problem solving ability with loans and clients and scenarios because that was the way that he functioned. And I'm ever grateful to have had that experience with him and some awesome mentors that really kind of helped set the mindset of what it is to be a really good loan officer, but even better educator. So yeah, so I came back in the business. I was working underneath, a top producer. I think our best year we did 100 million. We did a transaction every day. I was right there with them, contacting clients, helping them put together the pre-approvals. So it really gave me a lot of hands-on experience that I'm very grateful for and helped me kind of set the point where I was like, I think I can do this. Is it scary? Absolutely. You're going from, a salary, maybe some bonus to I don't close loans, my family does not eat. But you have to have that confidence in yourself that you can achieve whatever you want to, but you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, be uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and just have faith that your process and the way that you're going to work towards that goal will benefit.
I everything you said, I really do take into effect because I used to be in banking. I used to be in lending. So
Yeah,
I used to be in the Hartford area. So as the Hartford area, you have a lot of Spanish speaking people. And nobody really wants to have a translator. They want the actual person to be able to speak their language. They're going to feel very comfortable when you're able to say something in Spanish or traducir los rates or qué significa esto. So when somebody hears you talk in their tongue, they feel more comfortable. And the more comfortable you feel as well, kind of like closing those deals or bringing the people because you connect with them, that's how people keep coming back.
I agree with you. It's
Right?
so funny that, initially you never know because you get the referral and it's like maybe a Spanish speaker, maybe it's not. A lot of times they're like, hey, it's a Spanish speaker. I'm calling. They're like, hey, what's up? You know? So I think that's always a funny part. But the second that, they hear you speak Spanish, it's like all of a sudden your family,
Hmm.
and you can't take that for granted. But you also can't take advantage of it
Correct.
because they do deserve, I believe that we're all fiduciary, right? So it's not good enough for us to just basically, in my opinion, just translate and then they don't have anything to refer back to in their native language. I equivalent it to it's like, you go to Italy. and you're trying to buy something there. And yeah, the guy can translate it for you and he can send you some notes, but like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Right. It's never going to be the same.
It's never going to be the same, so that's, part of why I was so attracted to Go To Rate, because it was this new initiative where, the owner of the company is all about growth. It's all about, multicultural. And we were the first company to have a truly Spanish speaking process, not just the initial application that everybody has, but we spent our own money to develop something that's truly for Spanish speakers. You're doing the whole application in Spanish. We have our disclosures, we have the appraisal. My team speaks Spanish, which is, huge. I have, a young lady that helps me with pre-approvals, because a lot of times you need that extra time. And sometimes as a loan officer, you can't, you're constantly helping people at all times. And it's not fair to one person to cut early because you have others. So I've really, in my growth, we brought her on. Michelle, she's amazing. She's willing to go on the phone, help problem solve. She can take over the screen and help them. It's all in Spanish, but sometimes, you need that guidance. So, for me, I think it was huge because it really kind of aligned with my business model, which is, giving them that time, educating them, walking them through the process, and then they feel confident. So confident that sometimes I have clients call me and like telling me that their kid wants to, I had a client, my kid wants to buy, and they already kind of know the process. I'm like, well, what do you need me for?
Right.
But, I take great satisfaction in knowing that, you empower people with knowledge versus just going through the motions. And then half the time they're like, what did I sign?
I agree. So when you have clients, you mentioned that. When you have the clients, they come to you, let's say first time buyers, never had a lender, do not know the process. They might speak Spanish or English. How do you talk to them about rates or the market? Or would you say now it's a good time? Because they all have that same question.
Right. So, I think that's a double-edged sword, because I think in real estate, is there ever really a good time? If we had crystal balls and, we can say next month it's going to be great, I wouldn't be doing mortgages. Ever so, if we look at the current market, after the recent, consumer pricing index report, some of the jobs reports, the data did alleviate to a certain extent inflation, which at that point, helped rates improve to a certain extent. But is it a good time for you, to buy at this moment? That's really up to you. What's your life, event? Are you tired of renting? You can afford this. Did you just have a child? You need bigger space. We all have our different reasons for why we need to purchase. So, to have a generic answer of now's the time, you're just being sold, because there's always the circumstance that, when people were buying them in the 80s at 15% interest rate, was that the time? Well, if you have a crystal ball and you look at 2020 when they're, at the lowest interest rates in the history of the country, maybe it wasn't. But
I have people ask me too.
yeah,
And I tell them, well, what point are you in your life are you? Are you building a family? Are you growing your family? Then it's your point. Not everybody's going to have the same answer.
correct.
Right? You buy a house when you're ready to buy a house, when you're ready to go into real estate, or if you're investing. So that question for me is just so trivial. It's just at what point are you in your life?
Exactly. And back to your question, I always start off with wanting to have a consultation of some sort. I know that, Gen Z, it's like trying to get them on the phone is
Difficult.
it's like, exactly. It's very difficult.
Difficult.
So, I've developed templates and scripts for them just to be able to outline the basic process, because they don't want to hear my voice. They want to read it, have that space where they can make their decision, so be it. But it's always important to have them understand, like, this is what we're looking at for, this is how you qualify. This is the current market. This is what's available towards you hypothetically. This is what we need you to do, action steps. And then, we have them apply. We gather documentation to make sure everything is precise. I'm one of those where I have too much OCD anxiety, so I can't let a pre-approval go unless, we do have some evidence that we know that this is going to. I like to sleep at night.
Okay. That's good.
And then at that point in time, you're having that conversation with the client. no cookie cutter thing. It's like, well, you could do a conventional loan at 5% down, but maybe you want to do an FHA because it might, help you with the down payment is less. You have more money that you could put sweat equity in there. Sometimes the rates, government rates are typically, better. So that scenario might make more sense for them and their point of life than someone who, has multiple properties, a ton of cash, and they're just looking to invest. All right, here's this product for you. Here's this other option. These are the pros and cons. How would you like to proceed? So I think that, you can't take a cookie cutter approach, which is, a lot of times when it should be a red flag. You're like, why no one's really talking to me? Here you go, run with it. Um, and that's just kind of how that's how I devise my process.
So going through the startup, going into working with a top lender, going into then creating this clientele for you and talking Spanish, English, having a great assistant, having a great team. How did this translate now into you doing your group? You're the founder, you have a system. Talk to me a little bit about how you got to be the businessman you are today with that group.
That's a great question. So I think a lot of it is just I'm one of those people that there's always more, right? So it's always about having the right people around you and then really just having a vision, right? So at that point in time, my vision was is that like I really want to be able to scale. That we all know as Spanish speaking loan officers, a lot of times the difficulty is the time that it takes. And that time is definitely warranted. But a lot of times, if you can delegate, right? Every good leader needs to be able to delegate. It's great that you're really good at calling someone for paperwork, but my role is to have the consultations, get them prepared, and then, quite frankly, be in the community, get more business, you know, build more relationships. And I think that, having the right team around me, which is not easy because you have to have similar personalities, right? Um, I am not, someone that like is good with just getting to the finish line. If you get there, great, but like, did you give it everything you had to get there at your fastest pace? So on and so forth. So I had to have a team that really, felt that passion because I'm very passionate at everything that I try to do. And now that I have that team that we were able to put together, everybody there just wants to execute. And I think that's big because now, I can focus in on, I'm joining, now Rep Hartford County and on the, we have an event, in February where we're conducting and, I'm very, proud to have the time to try to be able to be, directing a couple roles. Um, I wouldn't be able to do that without a strong team because, you're constantly getting referrals. People are constantly texting you, calling you. Sometimes they need help with applications. Sometimes they need help with explanation on, documentation, what's being requested. And all of that is important. And that's why I have, top end professionals that are specialized in, hey, you want to set up an appointment to talk it over? Let's do it. Here's an email with the synopsis of what we just discussed. Let me know if there's any questions. And having that has really freed up time, because we all have lives. We all wear a lot of hats, so I'd like to try to get involved in my son's, PTO. I want to be able to coach soccer, in the evenings. I want to be able to be part of great organizations like NAREP and really be there for these moments, alongside with my family, my friends. And I feel like if you don't have that time, which you can create with delegation, with proper procedures, with proper like business flows, then you're trying to do everything, but you're not accomplishing anything. So, when I first started, it was building your name. Like people knew me because I was, on a team and that was the name and I built a good reputation. But at the same time, you have to grow yourself. So it's always, you put your initial grind in, the late phone calls, the weekends, all of that. And then you kind of come to a point where, people trust that you know how to do a good job, that you're a good communicator, that you're there. And then you can kind of set your parameters with a strong team. Like today, I have some time to come in today, versus being stuck in chasing paperwork, so on and so forth. Because I have such a strong team, I don't think twice. I know that they'll get the job done. If they need me, they'll reach out to me. And I think that's crucial for anyone, no matter what level, because you gotta be able to build your business and focus in on that. and also take care of your mental health. But you don't have the time if you're always in the groundwork doing everything in the week. So that's kind of, and growth is going to continue on, because I'm not the biggest lender yet, hopefully that's my goal, but it's, kind of growing at the pace of your life and then having goals to continue, helping, getting bigger and achieving some of those goals, which for everyone isn't the same.
No, I agree 100%. Part of my job is to delegate a lot. And sometimes I am that OCD or that control, like I want to make sure everybody's getting the same service. So sometimes it's a little difficult, but we try. I really do you surround yourself with really good people. And you hope and you train them the best you can for them. Like if you're not there present, they're still getting the same treatment without you.
Correct.
When we talk about that and you mentioned something about mental health and leadership, but what would you say is the hardest thing to be kind of like the team leader with all this?
Great question. So I think that, being a team leader, I think part of it has come from, being a parent, having my son. It's about being able to be that calming presence when everything is chaotic. It's understanding that there's so many different personality types. And as a leader, you have to be able to kind of develop the team dynamic with the strengths of what you have, right? I can't force somebody to be, X way when they're not built like that. But you have to have the presence of mind to say, well, you know what? Their skill set is really like calling people and getting them on the phone and being able to get the document. Not very good at understanding what the loan is, but that is their skill set. So versus saying, well, you know what? You can't help me because you're not good at this, that, and the other. You're like, oh, you know what? I like her strength. Her strength is going to be this, and it helps. It helps complement what I can do or what the other teammates can do because everybody has a strength. So I think that's a big portion of it is just being able to understand that. That is what I see as leadership. Show them the work ethic. Show them that you're willing to do what it takes. I'm the loan officer. I'm the face of it, but don't get it wrong. Like I'm the first one. If I gotta, call and get a pay stub, because we have to close quickly, or there's something, I gotta help you set up something to get your taxes or whatever it is. My team knows that I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll get it done without even, without blinking. But a lot of times I don't need to do that because you surround yourself around people,
Correct people.
the correct people. They want to get it done just as much as you do because you take pride in your work.
Yeah. One of the things you learn when you're in leadership is that not everybody's going to be like you, but everybody has a certain thing, like a special thing that's going to make them out of a team. You don't need everybody to be good callers. You don't need everybody to be digital marketing. You just need them to be in the right place for it to work. So that's something you learn. Take me back and again, you mentioned mental health. Take me back how it felt, COVID, having this growing family, having a job that at the end of the day you couldn't hold on to, right? Baby coming along, you had everything going on. How is the mental health of somebody in sales, somebody that's changing jobs, and where are you? And how did that affect you, really?
I think that mental health is an ongoing journey. I think it's also something that has impacted me because, we all know it's a cultural thing. With
Mm-hmm.
the Latinos, especially males. You show weakness, that's not okay. You're going to cry, really? You're going to experience those emotions. No, you're just going to have to, punish yourself through it. And I think that, just having the ability to at some point say, I need to improve, I need to improve my mental health. I think it kind of started, like you're saying, in a pressure-filled environment, which is sales. You're being pulled in 5 million directions, constantly dealing with negativity, pressure. In our business, you don't close a loan,
You don't
you don't
need.
generate any income.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that was difficult initially for me because I like to control everything, and I felt like I had no control. Um, I, suffer, I'm depression
Mm-hmm.
and all that, clinically. So I think a big component of that was like seeking help, and I had a great therapist. It was funny because he was actually in, insurance and all that prior to to becoming a therapist, and he's a therapist for 30 years and retired a couple of years back. But I think it was important for me to connect with someone who understood where I was coming from and helping me realize that it's okay to get help. We all want to will our way through everything, but sometimes it's really just being able to communicate with someone who understands. They hear you, they help you process it, and a big component of it was just realizing that sometimes there's physiological and biological things that go on, in terms of your brain, so on and so forth, and sometimes you do need medication to help with it. And it wasn't until recently. It was funny. It was with my cousin, my wife, who is a licensed, she's got a private practice therapist, and then his wife, APRN with every single, title. And we're so much alike, me and him. And she was basically like, yeah, he had a hard time. He's medicating and he feels great. And I'm kind of opened up my eyes, and everyone's like, you have the same tendencies, you have the same behaviors. Us Machados are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
We're just driven that way. And it kind of opened up my mind, and I'm like, if he's willing to, take on that, like, why am I not? So you have to be honest with yourself sometimes, and it's not always great, to absorb the truth. But I can say that, the medication, the therapy was very helpful. I feel very calm, relaxed, even in pressure situations, because you kind of work on that on your own, but also you can't do it alone all the time. So just working on being grounded, knowing that past there's nothing you can do, the present there's nothing you can do. The future is nothing you can do. You can't control it. You can only control what's in front of you. And once you kind of help develop a mindset that you're there in the moment and all you can do is behave in that moment, it helped. I'm not thinking I lost that deal. What happened? Could I have done that better? While I'm trying to sleep, and I just can't go to sleep because I'm thinking of 50 other things and the stressors. So I think that was big for me, because once I was able to kind of, understand that, understand myself better, I started, getting other opportunities. And I feel like it's been something that has helped me on a trajectory for, a positive career path, looking to grow every year. I started off producing less than double digits. Now, 10 million or more is like the bar easily, which is not easy when you're a Spanish speaking lender, but you have those goals and you want to continue growing. And I know I can't do it without putting myself right mentally, because it's just everything that we do.
So, and I want to touch on a little bit what you said. Hispanic, Latino culture, right? Very strong into you're the man of the family, you're the leader, you're the top front runner, right? And it's very difficult to admit when sometimes we need help. And admitting we need help, it's not a bad thing.
No.
I think we need to talk more about it. Being medicated or having help, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes, like yourself, very like driven professionally, you do very well for yourself, you provide for your family, but sometimes a little help is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say just because you're happy or you're laughing or you're something, that people wouldn't believe you're medicated, or people wouldn't believe that you have sometimes issues. It's not like that. I went through a little bit of hardship with somebody close to me passing, and then going through that and actually saying, yeah, I do need help. I need a little bit like extra push. It's not something bad. In sales is very stressful. Selling cars. I have a friend actually that's selling cars, and with everything going on, even holidays, it kind of slows down.
Yeah.
So people are stressed, like mortgage, meeting your mortgage, meeting everything. But I think going through what we've been through, I think it helps connect you a little bit more with your clients. And it makes you a little bit more down to earth, more humble, more everything. So it keeps coming, like the clients keep coming back because they feel like they can connect with you. How important is connecting with your client, connecting with maybe a real estate agent, a salesperson, important for your business growth?
Yeah. I think that in general, the way that we should handle our business is we're a people business, right? So if you can't understand who's in front of you, why they're here, what they're trying to accomplish, then how are you helping them?
Correct.
You're not. You're helping. You're self-serving. And I think that that is a huge, we'll say, a negative aspect sometimes of the business, where you see people as numbers versus like, how can I help them be in the better spot to then purchase
Mm-hmm.
later, even though it doesn't serve me now. And I know that sounds ludicrous, but let's be honest, we know that that's, a typical tendency. I had a conversation, I think it was yesterday, the day before, with a reoccurring client, and life happened. Can she purchase now? Probably, but she's not where she needs to be. And I wouldn't be setting her up for success if she has 50 cents in her
Savings.
savings, and we're leveraging a down payment assistance just to get her in the house. And then what? Something breaks, then what? And I think that's something that really, has opened my eyes a lot. Because I do, you always hear about get into a house with no money out of pocket. Well, that's great and all. And I'm so happy that you were able to leverage, assistance to get them in the house. But are you really doing them
The best.
service? And are you really looking out for them when you know that they have $500 in their pocket? The only reason they bought the house was from a grant. And then the second that their fridge breaks or, life happens, they have nothing to fall back on. I find it hard to sleep at night, setting people up for that, because then you're not truly educating them. They don't understand the cost of the home, because just because you qualify on paper, we don't include utilities. We don't include, cost of food. We don't
Your
include
personal expenses.
personal expenses. And, and in today's day, I think we have some of the highest credit card debt that this country has ever, faced. So you're looking at people that a lot of times are over leveraging themselves. So sometimes it's okay, and if she decides to move forward elsewhere because someone's going to say, you could do it right now, I'm okay with that, because I know at the end of the day, if something happens, I did what I could. And I think that that has to be what we do for our Latino community. We can't just see them as, another client that I can get into a home no matter what. You really have to educate them and have them understand, by all means, you have what you have. We can get you in the home, but just be aware that there's expenses. If your pipes freeze because of the 7-degree weather, that comes
That's
out of
going to be,
pocket to you,
yes. Yeah.
and
Even medical, your car, something happened, can't fix it. So, yes. And that comes down into stressors. And stressors lead into some type of like mental health as well.
correct.
Some issues. How hard was it to admit that to yourself that you might have needed a little bit of help?
I was in denial for a long time. And I want to say probably most of my adult life. I'm 38 now, and I started embracing it, I want to say like 3-4 years ago. And then therapy, I embraced that prior to that, probably, 6-7 years ago. But I think that I was always in denial, why can't I focus in on something for long periods of time, because I have
Mm-hmm.
ADD, and no excuse at all. But when you truly have it, you understand that your mind works differently.
Correct.
You can have as many lists and calendar reminders and all that, but you become scatterbrained a lot. So, being medicated has really helped me slow it down, slow my thought processes down, really be able to focus in and accomplish tasks, whether it's business planning, for an hour straight. I could tell you that when I'm, prior to, I wouldn't be able to sit there for more than 15 minutes and be like, all right, I need to do something else. Right now, I got to sit here for a couple hours and really focus in on my business planning. Like, how am I going to accomplish my goals? Embracing that, also knowing that, with, being depressed and bipolar, you're going to have your ups and downs just
Mm-hmm.
personality wise. So now you're going to include stressors such as, downtimes, COVID, switching careers, switching from one company to another, betting on yourself. I mean, that really taxed a lot. But I think that in life, you have those moments where they're kind of moments. You have it, and you just push yourself to not let that go. And I can promise you a lot of growth comes from that. But you have to have those ugly conversations with yourself and really like look deep into yourself and say, I'm imperfect. We all are imperfect, but this is the ugly. These are the demons. These are, the things that I need to improve on if I ever truly want to get to the next level. And then the next level doesn't have to be greatness for everybody. It could be little things like, being a better, parent, being a better business person, being able to, be a better person in general, whatever it is, some growth, incremental growth is better than no growth.
I agree. So we're wrapping up. I want you to kind of look at the camera, talk to our public, our men now. Somebody that was in your position a couple years ago, salesman, cars, anything. How did you build this plan? What is your thought, your motivation through mental health, through a child, to growth, to becoming the man you are today? Where can they start?
I would say, you really want to start with just looking at yourself in the mirror and know that growth is not going to happen on its own. Having that ugly conversation with yourself and really kind of pushing yourself to grow. I listen to, I have an app called Pep Talk, and it's, all these different motivational, but people that have accomplished things. And um, I was listening to one, and it's called Make Your Bed, right? And the premise of it, it's a Navy SEAL. The guy, was one of those guys that like was there when they killed Bin Laden,
Okay.
big time guy, right? And his point was start every day by making your bed. Why? Because if you can accomplish the little task, you can accomplish the big task. And it also helps you realize that without accomplishing that small task, you probably won't get to the large task. And at the end of the day, you go out into the world and it's going to beat you up. But when you come home, your bed's made. And that's a reminder that tomorrow's a new day. And I think that is something that really touched me, to realize that we all go through that, especially in sales. You're going to have people that are not going to call you back. They're going to ignore you. They're going to leverage you with somebody else. You're going to have periods of time where the market's going to be slow. People aren't buying. They're scared of the economy. They're not educated. They just watch online, whatever. And then, and then at that point in time, it hurts your business. And so you can't go through those trials and tribulations if you're looking at it almost in a victim manner. You have to see that everything happens for your growth, and you can either embrace it and grow, or you can feel bad for yourself and stay stuck. So for all those business professionals and men out there, I say, it's difficult to do what we do, but it's even more difficult when you don't set yourself up for success and truly take care of yourself and then embrace growth and pain.
I like that. Thank you. Anything that like you want to say before we wrap it up and you give your social media? Anything you want to mention to the public out there looking at you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, in terms of the business, I think a big part of the growth is because I've decided that I would like to grow with business partners. I think that there's a lot of lenders, there's a lot of realtors, and a big realization of mine has been is that you don't have to work with everybody. You want to work with the right people. People that are passionate, people that want to grow, people that respect your personal time, and vice versa. So, out there, if you are looking to grow your business as a realtor, whether you're sold one house or 50, I'm more than happy to, I would love to sit down. I'd love to discuss how I can help you grow your business, how we can grow together, because we all know that this is a journey that takes multiple parties.
Oh, yes.
The only way that you're going to get better and grow is by working with people that see you as a partner and not just as a transactional, vendor. So we'd love to have coffee, lunch, whatever it is, to chat about how, we can grow, because at the end of the day, we're all here to support each other. It's a small business. And so let's do right by each other.
That was great. I do think the same. Small circle, really, everybody at the end of the day ends up knowing each other and getting to work with each other. So I thank you. Before we go, please go ahead and share where they can find you actually in social media.
Absolutely. So social media wise, on Instagram, I believe, catch name, which I update. I think it's John underscore Machado. We'll post it below so that way everyone has it. Or, simply my cell phone, 860-604-0905, or my email, which we'll put below as well. Um, feel free to reach out. More than happy to have conversations, help out, questions, whatever it is. I want to be a resource in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, John Carlos. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Please go ahead and hit follow and like, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.